So I thought I would actually just start my day with some studying because I do want to bring back that study with me thing I had going on. The book that I've been studying lately is a book by Frida Kahlo, and I did start reading it and I took some notes, but I didn't like actually sit down to study. So that's what I'm gonna do today first, and I am going to start painting all today because I am hoping for a productive day. It might not happen, and that's okay. I'm trying to have this mindset where I'm not gonna beat myself up if I'm not as productive as I plan in the morning, but it's gonna be at least a fun day. That I hope. So somebody decided to join us today. What is wrong with you? So I am going to start studying the Frida Kahlo book, but I thought I would at least tell you the parts I already studied and what I read because it's really interesting and I want to share it. So one of the reasons why I picked her and this book to study today is because I find myself particularly inspired by her. There's a lot of elements. One of them being that one of the most popular things about her art, when you think about Frida Kahlo, what do you think about? Self-portraits. And that is something that in my art for the longest time I hated so much, that I mostly did self-portraits. And when I was done, as much as I loved the result, I ended always feeling dissatisfied and feeling like my art was boring, limited, monotonous, because it's just a lot of self-portraits. Even though they were all really different, they all represented emotions that I was trying to express. There was a lot of different elements to them as well. But that didn't matter. To me, it was just, it's another self-portrait. It's me. Who wants to see me? Who cares about this? So a lot of those paintings I just kept to myself and called them studies, even though when I was working on them, they felt like just stories that I was telling. Now, that feeling never went away until I started studying Frida and I realized the importance of self-portraits. Also, my therapist, a shout out to that lady. So I thought I would start by talking a little bit about what I already read in the book. So one of the things is that Frida is such a big inspiration for me personally, because when you think about Frida's art, the first thing you think of are her self-portraits. And for the longest time, I still do love working on self-portraits, but it made me feel, in a way, self-conscious, because even though I felt like as I was working on those paintings, I had a story to tell and I had a reason for everything, at the end, I felt a almost inexplicable sense of guilt for making paintings about me and only about me. I felt that art needed to be something that could be shared and that other people could relate to, other people's experiences could be told through it, and having the time and the energy and the space and basically the ability to make a painting and always doing it about myself felt almost selfish. And even now, as I say it out loud, it sounds so ridiculous, but at the time it was how I felt. And specifically during the time that we were all locked at home, it was really hard to paint something other than self-portraits, even though it's what I really wanted to do. But even those days where I was trying to do something different, it was really hard because I didn't have a lot of people that I could ask to model for me or different scenarios and places I could go to at the time. It was just me, my mirror, my camera, and a lot of emotions that needed to be expressed. So that is kind of where my obsession with Frida comes in, because obviously for very different reasons. In her case, because she was bedridden, she did not have the option to just paint outside. She had a mirror and her paints, and through those she was able to tell so much. all of her portraits, all of her self-portraits are so different to each other, and they tell such different sides of her life. So I thought, maybe this guilt that I'm feeling is not because I'm making self-portraits, but because there is something else inside that needs to be addressed. Because why else would you feel guilt and feel like it's wrong to make art about yourself? So I started reading about her. First thing is that she is very family oriented. There are so many paintings that she makes of her family, some specifically of her dad, some are her family tree, and I will put them on the screen. Since the beginning, we can see where her focus is. There's a lot of moments that are just personal to her in her art. Then we see the different influences that impacted her art style. One of the most prominent ones is obviously the Mexicanism, which is just the classic Mexican art style and what defined it. But it does say how, as her art evolved, she started to have some influence from Diego Rivera. So it uses this image as an example, which is a painting of her sister. Now it goes to the part where Frida actually starts showing more about her personal experience in life. These are some of my highlighted moments. And it talks about her accident. So she works on a painting that depicts almost in a literal way what happened to her, which was inspired by another piece of art that she saw that reminded her exactly of what happened. You see there's a combination of obviously images, but also of text, which is something I see she does a lot in her paintings, where she just writes different messages to accompany the image. And that is another of the things that I find really inspiring about her art, because I like how literal it can be while also containing so much symbolism and so many details that you have to extract to understand. And one of the reasons for that, of why I love it so much, is because, again, it's something that I really criticized about my art. I used to think that good art needed to be studied and analyzed and extracted to be able to be understood. And if a painting was too literal and too easy to understand, then it was too simple and not deep enough. Now, obviously, I couldn't be more mistaken, and that is kind of the mentality of somebody who's just been a snob and not really understands art. So it took a while for me to grow and understand that's not how art works. That is just a preference. But regardless of that, that also made me feel self-conscious about my own art, because when I did make paintings that were supposed to represent my story and what I'm trying to say, I really wanted to force symbolism and elements into it that didn't really mean a lot to me. Like, I had to look up and Google things and try to see how I can make those make sense with the story I'm trying to tell, just because I wanted there to be elements of symbolism. And instead of letting it flow naturally and paint what I really wanted to paint, it ended up looking like something that I wasn't proud of, because it wasn't really what I had in my mind. But also, it wasn't really that deep, because yeah, I had items and elements there that have a meaning if you look it up, but the real meaning of it to me and to this art was just, I wanted to add something that you had to Google to understand. There was not really a reason to add it. So that left me feeling even worse about my art. And see here, again, referencing that painting of her accident. It can't get any more literal than that. There's the scene, that's exactly what happened. Now, there is still symbolism, because you see on the top here, you see on the text, there's stuff that has to be extracted and understood, maybe have some background on her story and what do they mean, to get the full 100% understanding of it. And I love that so much, because it looks genuine. It looks like she added things as they came to her, which makes it so raw and real. And that's what I hope I can one day do with my art as well. Now, the next part of the book that I haven't started to read yet, and it's what I'm gonna study today, it goes into her relationship with Diego Rivera. Here you see a little sketch of them. And as you see, my little bent corner on the top, again, without a bookmark because it's me. So yeah, we're gonna go into her relationship with Diego Rivera. That was such a big part of her career and her life. But just looking through the book and just seeing her art is so, like, it makes me feel things. Because it's a beautiful painting, and you can tell there is emotion and story being told through them. But specifically, when you analyze it and you can find it as a source of inspiration, it stops being a painting and it starts being just like a mirror of what I hope to see one day when I look at my own art. I find her to be a huge inspiration for my art, and I cannot speak a lot about it because I have not done my research yet. I'm about to, but I've also heard controversial opinions whether she was a feminist artist or not because of her situation with Diego Rivera, but I do not know what I'm saying, so please don't hold me accountable for that. I am gonna do my research on that, and I want to understand what's behind all of that. But so far, at least on my perception of her and what I extract from her art, how it makes me feel and how it reflects on myself, I find that it does make me feel more inspired to make more art about women, for women, with women, about women. So yeah, we're gonna study her some more.